Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in May 2025. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. I'm going to take you through some details concerning Preseen application in the first part of tonight's webinar. And in the second part, I will be taking you through the industry dynamics, thereby conducting an industry analysis based on our industry analysis slides. Then in the final part, I will be conducting a pre-scene analysis. Our recorded pre-scene analysis videos consist of four main parts, four main videos, because your pre-scene is divided into four main parts. So I don't have time to take you through the entire pre-scene. Instead, I'm simply going to take you through the internal dynamics of your chosen company so that you gain a good understanding of what you are getting into and what type of a company this time's pre-scene is based on. So before we get into the technical nitty-gritties, let me quickly remind you of the upcoming webinars and workshops which we have scheduled for you. The third webinar out of the four webinars, the most important one is the third one, answering technique, which is happening on the 12th of April, which is next Saturday at 9 GMT or 10 a.m. UK. So in this third webinar, I'm going to teach you answering and time management techniques, which are crucial to pass SCS in your first sitting itself. At the third webinar, after teaching you answering and time management techniques, I will also take you through one of the mock exams and its answer, thereby explaining how to implement these answering and time management techniques in a practical sense. So make sure to attend the third webinar without fail. And at the third webinar, I will be conducting a Q&A. So if you have any questions or concerns, if you attend this webinar live, you can get all these concerns addressed. And in the fourth webinar, exam prep, I'm going to take you through the exam blueprint, thereby highlighting what the examiner has to tell about how you should conduct your preparations and how you should develop answers, what you need to focus on when it comes to developing high quality answers. And at the same webinar, in the fourth webinar, I will be sharing tips to make sure that you overcome stressful situations. So ideally, I will be sharing stress management techniques with you. And then we are kickstarting our workshop series, and we are starting the workshop series by focusing your attention towards the F3 syllabus. So I will explain what is covered within your F3 syllabus and all these syllabus areas, which type of syllabus areas can be tested at the SCS exam. And at the same time, I will take you through one of the mock exams concerning the F3 syllabus, thereby taking you through the answer. And I will be adhering to a similar methodology when conducting the second and third workshops, in which I'm going to direct your attention towards P3 and E3 syllabi. And in each of these workshops, I will be conducting a Q&A. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can get them answered at each of these workshops. And the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before your real exam, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of confidence, believing in your skill set. Because as per the CIMA examiner, if you believe in yourself, if you're confident, then chances of you passing this exam becomes extremely high. So make sure to attend these weekly webinars and workshops, which are conducted free of charge. This is the best way to learn technicalities behind your exam, and at the same time, you have the ability of getting in touch with me on a weekly basis, which is the best way to keep tabs about your performance. All right. So having said that, let's try to understand how you should tackle the pre-scene document. So when developing answers, especially at this stage, since you are supposed to play the role of a senior finance manager, I mentioned the fact that you are directly reporting to the CFO and other board members. So I highlighted all these things in depth about your responsibilities in the first webinar. If you missed out on it, please go watch the recorded version, which can be accessed via our website, via the student dashboard, as well as via our YouTube handle. So in it, I mentioned the fact that you are directly reporting to the board, and as an individual who is involved with strategic decision making of the company, long-term decision making of the company, you need to adopt something called an outside-in approach. So you need to have a good understanding of what happens within your industry, and at the same time, you should have the capability to determine whether your decisions or how your decisions or your recommendations will impact the internal dynamics of your chosen company. So with this in mind, with the intention of ensuring that you bring in relevant information when developing your answers, first things first, you need to make sure that you know your key information. For instance, you need to have a thorough understanding of the principal risks of Leothayre as per what's highlighted within this Preseen. So with the intention of making sure that you have the capability to clearly and easily understand the key information, we have developed two different material. One is the annotated Preseen. You will see, what this annotated Preseen is and what it looks like in a little while, because when I'm conducting the Preseen analysis, I'm going to rely on the annotated Preseen which we have developed. And additionally, we have also developed a Preseen mind map. So this is what the Preseen mind map looks like. And as a thank you gift for attending this webinar, I will be sharing this Preseen mind map via the WhatsApp group right after the webinar. And once you have access to this Preseen mind map, your life becomes easy. You need not come up with your own short notes or your mind maps concerning the Preseen document. As you know, your Preseen goes on for 25 odd pages. So it's not too easy to figure out which of the information is the most important and which information you should disregard. So we have made sure to include all the relevant information which you need to remember before walking into the exam, thereby developing a Preseen mind map. So from today onwards, on a daily basis, keep reading or keep going through this Preseen mind map over and over until the day of your exam. And if you do so, you need not do anything else to remember the key information which appears within your Preseen. And at the same time, similar to this document, we have developed 6 different TikTok videos and YouTube shorts and whatnot. So you can watch these 6 videos on a continuous basis until the day of your exam, with the intention of memorizing what appears within your Preseen document. So you need not you do your own mind maps and whatnot. We have tackled it for you. And you need to know your key ratios because you are playing the role of a senior finance manager. You are directly reporting to the CFO of your company. So you need to know your numbers. However, at the exam, you are not expected to do any major calculations. You might be expected to, recalculate the gearing ratio. Other than that, I've never seen, major calculations being tested at the SCS exam, because as I've mentioned in the first webinar, the examiner is trying to replicate a real life corporate environment. So in a real life corporate environment, all the facts and figures will be shared with a senior manager. A senior manager is not involved with calculations. So because of that, at your exam, all the facts and figures will be shared with you. Your job is to conduct evaluations. And at the same time, before walking into the exam, you need to know what appears within your financial statements. For instance, the gearing ratio of your chosen company is 50%. You need to know what it implies about the future of the company, about the debt level of the company, because by looking at the gearing ratio, we can gain a good understanding of our finance costs. If you look at the financial statements of your chosen company, our finance costs had increased significantly across the years 2024 and 2025, and our revenues had only increased by 6%. And looking at our net profit margin, it has only increased by 1%. Our net profit margin in the year 2025 was 10%. Yes, 10%. So, likewise, you need to remember the key information, and at the same time, you need to understand what appears within the financial statements and what these financial statements tell us about your chosen company's financial standing. So with the intention of making sure that you gain a good understanding of what's highlighted within each financial statement, we have developed a set of slides. These are slides which financial analysis slides which we developed for the previous case study. So we have evaluated each financial statement in depth, yet keeping things simple so that you can easily gain an understanding of your company's performance against its closest competitor. And the same could be said about the statement of financial position and the statement of changes in equity. And at the very end, we have also conducted a ratio analysis concerning four main elements: profitability, activity, gearing, and liquidity. And again, we have evaluated each ratio so that you gain a good understanding about the financial standing of your chosen company against its closest competitor. So as a senior finance manager, I said that you need to adopt an outside-in approach when it comes to decision making. I said that you need to be conversant with what happens within your industry. So it's essential to understand the financial standing of your closest competitor, especially given the fact that your examiner has shared these financial statements via your Preseen document. So it's crucial to remember the key ratios again. You need not worry. We have covered these elements. Simply go through one of the Preseen analysis videos, which is dedicated towards your financial statements. After you watch it, you'll gain a good understanding of what appears within each financial statement. And at the same time, refer to the financial analysis slides on your own, thereby conducting revision. And when conducting preparations, you need to rely on mock exams. And when attempting each of these mock exams, it's essential that you attempt full 3-hour mock exams, because at the exam, that's exactly what you do. As I mentioned in webinar 1, your paper consists of 3 sections. So when attempting each mock exam, make sure to attempt mocks which carry 3 sections and which carries a total time allocation of 3 hours. When attempting each mock exam, do it under exam conditions. If not, you will struggle at your exam. It's essential that you mimic the exam situation when attempting each mock exam, which is the only way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. I want you to be exposed to stressful situations when conducting your preparations, because when you do so, when you are exposed to stressful situations, you will know how to overcome these stressful situations. If so, you will never be stressed at your real examination. And as I mentioned earlier, in the 4th webinar, I'm going to share stress management techniques with you. In the 3rd webinar, I'm going to teach you answering and time management techniques. And when attempting each mock exam, your job should be to keep repeating these techniques over and over, thereby practicing enough so that you'd manage your time appropriately, you'd develop well-structured answers at your exam, and at the same time, you will manage stressful situations. So that's about mock attempts. And it's essential that you, when it comes to attempting mock exams, it's essential that you attempt 6 mock exams. Why 6 mocks? Because if you have gone through past exam variants or past papers, you would have seen that the examiner develops 6 different papers focused on each Preseen document, because the examiner intends to cover all syllabus areas. So you can't cover all syllabus areas simply by developing 2 or 3 mocks. So that's exactly why the examiner develops 6 different mocks. And at the same time, if you had already gone through the Preseen document, right at the end of your Preseen, you would have seen 5 newspaper articles. And based on these articles, the examiner will be developing scenarios which appear in each of your exam variants. So there are 5 newspaper articles within your Preseen. And at the same time, usually the examiner comes up with an additional scenario which is tied to some type of an internal issue or a data breach. Okay, so there's no indication of a data breach within the newspaper articles, but definitely there will be a scenario which is tied to a data breach. So that's why it's essential that you attempt 6 mock exams. with the intention of covering all the scenarios which appear within the pre-scene and at the same time covering all syllabus areas. And when attempting mocks, don't rely on past papers or past exam variants, because past exam variants are based on a totally different pre-scene. For instance, you can't go through last sittings exam variants which was based on a lithium mining company. This time's pre-scene is totally different. This time's pre-scene is based on a satellite manufacturing and a satellite manufacturer and a satellite related service provider. So actually speaking, this time's pre-scene is out of this world. So it makes absolutely no sense for you to rely on past exam variants or past papers, because the news articles which appeared within a previous pre-scene is totally irrelevant to what appears within your current pre-scene. So when attempting mock exams, it's essential that you attempt exam standard mocks which are 100% pre-scene specific, and at the same time, when attempting each mock exam, you have to attempt it under exam conditions. Although you'll be getting a good understanding of how each scenario can be tested, you have to be open-minded. Why? Because the CIMA examiner, as I mentioned earlier, is trying to replicate a real-life corporate environment. So it's as if you're actually playing the role of a senior finance manager. And if you're a senior manager of a company, are you in a position to predict the type of opportunities the company is going to exploit or the type of issues the company is going to face? Even if you are the CEO of the company, you are not in a position to predict the future. So because of that, there's absolutely no point of trying to memorize what appears within each mock exam. Instead, your approach should be to understand the logic behind each question and its answer. So you have to be open-minded. That's exactly why, as per our study plan, I took you through the study plan in last week's webinar, the first webinar. So as per our study plan, we urge you to start relaxing a week before the exam, with the primary objective of making sure that you walk into the exam calm and composed, well relaxed, both in terms of mind and body. And at the same time, you walk into the exam with a higher level of open-mindedness. If so, you will develop answers which are totally aligned with each scenario and each requirement, rather than trying to replicate the scenarios or the logic of answers which you tackled or which you faced when attempting each of your mock exams. So prepare for possible scenarios, but be open-minded. And remember that the scenario presented at your exam carries latest information concerning what your company is facing at the moment. So your pre-scene gives you an indication of what the company has faced in the past. However, at your exam, fresh information, novel information concerning what the company faces at the moment will be shared with you. So, additional information which did not appear within the pre-scene will definitely be thrown at you. There will be some type of a relevance to, what appears within the pre-scene, but, additional information. For instance, at the moment, we are only into your company. You will gain a better understanding of all these things in a little while. For now, I'm telling the fact that your company is into manufacturing small satellites at the moment. However, at your exam, there could be a situation where we are contemplating about pursuing related diversification, thereby trying to generate additional revenues by looking at alternative revenue streams. So at the moment we are only relying on one single business model, but at your exam you might be expected to evaluate us pursuing a related diversification. So you'd gain a better understanding of what type of diversification might be tested at the exam when I'm done with the pre-scene analysis, which is going to happen in a little while. So this is all about pre-scene application. And when it comes to referring to pre-scene information in your answers, you need to bring in pre-scene info and include it within your answers with the intention of adding value to your answer. When marking papers, what I've understood is most students in the first paragraph itself, they'll say Leothayre is into manufacturing satellites. All right. So you need to remember what your role is and to whom you are reporting. So if you are receiving an email from your CFO, what is the point of mentioning the fact that we are into manufacturing satellites when the CFO has a better understanding of what the company is up to? So there's absolutely no point of you reminding the CFO of the fact that we are into manufacturing satellites and other generic information. I've seen students mentioning we are into manufacturing satellites, for instance. Then they might say we've been in operation for the past 10 years. We were, listed on the stock exchange on this year. All this information is irrelevant. If it is irrelevant to a scenario, you won't get any marks. So you are supposed to develop answers, come up with recommendations which are aligned with your Preseen. However, whenever you are bringing in Preseen info, you should do it with the intention of adding value to the adding value to your answer, rather than simply trying to show to the examiner that you have studied the Preseen. So avoid bringing in generic Preseen info. Bring in Preseen info only if it adds value to your answer. So please attend the third webinar, in which, as I mentioned earlier, after teaching you answering technique, I will take you through a mock exam and its answer. When doing so, I will explain how you should bring in Preseen info with the intention of adding value to your answers. And you can easily understand how to tackle this, how to tackle Preseen info when developing answers by referring to the suggested answers and the answer plans of our 6 mock exams. And at the same time, when you watch the master classes which we have developed, you will easily understand how to tackle Preseen application. All right, so that's that. Then let's have a look at how you should tackle your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. It's essential that you have a good understanding of all theoretical concepts covered under your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So some of you might be coming through an exemption route. If so, you would have completed your academic qualifications already. So in your academic qualifications, definitely you would have covered what appears within your E3 syllabus, because if you had gone through the E3 syllabus, you know for a fact that it's everything to do with the rational planning model. So the entire syllabus is based on the rational planning model, and the rational planning model or the rational model which is concerned with strategy development is covered in most academic qualifications out there. However, you will definitely have knowledge gaps concerning your F3 and P3 syllabi. So as a senior finance manager, if you don't know your numbers, then you can't pass this exam. And at the same time, as a senior finance manager, if you don't know how to identify risks and come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies, then again, you can't pass this examination. So it's essential that you learn your theories, although your practical application or your decision-making skills will be heavily tested at this exam. In order to come up with the best type of decisions and recommendations, you need to utilize the theoretical knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So some students think that you can disregard theories and simply come up with practical answers and pass this examination, which is not true. For instance, if there's a question about funding options, you need to consider what you have learned under your F3 syllabus. You need to consider how you should evaluate concerning debt financing, and how you should conduct an evaluation based on equity financing. So likewise, you need to know your theories. Again, if there's a question about managing stakeholders, it's best that you utilize the knowledge which you have gained via the Mendelow's matrix. So likewise, whenever you are supposed to come up with a recommendation, or whenever you are supposed to evaluate something, you are supposed to utilize the knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. And another example is a question tied to strategy evaluation. So if you are supposed to evaluate a strategic option which the company is going to pursue, rather than simply considering the advantages or disadvantages tied to a certain strategic initiative, it's best practice to utilize the SAF framework, or the suitability, acceptability, and the feasibility framework, so that you carry out a holistic evaluation concerning the opportunity at hand. So likewise, you are supposed to utilize theoretical concepts or conceptual knowledge with the intention of developing high quality answers, and prepare for interpretation of figures and numbers. As I mentioned earlier, you are not expected to do major calculations. So your facts and figures will be shared with you. Your job is to utilize these facts and figures when conducting your evaluations or when developing recommendations, and when conducting your studies concerning theoretical knowledge elements. Do not skip any topic, because any syllabus area or any concept which is covered within your syllabus can be tested. That's exactly why I said it's essential that you attempt 6 mock exams with the intention of making sure that you are conversant with how each syllabus area is tested at the exam, and do not rely on predictions, as any area can be examined. So I've seen tutors out there predicting that certain syllabus elements will not be tested at the SCS exam and certain syllabus elements will be heavily tested. Don't rely on predictions, because the examiner is very clear about this. Any syllabus area can be tested at your real examination. So that's why you have to be conversant with all 3 pillars. Okay, so having said that, before we move on to the industry and pre-scene analysis, let me quickly mention what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page. If you're yet to create a free user account, click on this button and create a user account. Once you have done so, you'd gain access to our student dashboard, via which you can gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops we conduct. And at the same time, you will gain access to the pre-scene mind map and a free mock exam along with its suggested answer and the answer plan. Also, you will have the opportunity of attempting the free mock exam under exam conditions via our exam platform. We have developed an exam platform which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system, with the intention of making sure that you attempt each mock exam under exam conditions. As I mentioned earlier, it's essential to do so that you master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. So under the free content, you gain access to our exam platform on which you can attempt mock exam 1. And if you are interested in investing on our paid content, click on this button and check the sample material before you invest. And if you are yet to join the SCS WhatsApp group, click on this button and join it. Via this group, we will keep you guys informed about the weekly webinar and workshop commencement times and dates. And at the same time, if you have any questions or concerns, you can always raise them. I'm always there to help you guys out. And also, via this same WhatsApp group, we will be sharing hordes of free content. So make sure to join it by clicking on this button. And talking about what we offer 2 packages, the essential course and the premium course. The essential course is developed for those who are coming through the CIMA general route. So since you have already completed your E3, F3, and P3 OTQs, you need not do anything else to learn theories. You have already learned all conceptual elements. So simply, when conducting your preparations, you need to take steps to improve your application skills. So under the essential course, you'd gain access to the recordings of all webinars and workshops, the 6 mock exams with suggested answers, which are 100% pre-scene specific and covers all syllabus areas. You'd gain access to 4 pre-scene analysis videos because your pre-scene is developed into 4 main parts. Concerning each part, we have developed a set of videos. And once you watch these videos, you need not conduct any research concerning the pre-scene. You'd gain an in-depth understanding of what appears within your pre-scene document. You'd also gain access to the annotated pre-scene, industry analysis, and financial analysis slides. You saw the content of the financial analysis slides previously. You will see what the annotated pre-scene and the industry analysis slides look like in a little while. And you'd also gain access to the top 20 likely issues, which indicate the most probable scenarios which will be tested at your exam. You will gain access to a case study familiarization kit. After reading this kit or going through this kit, within 10 to 15 minutes, you will gain an in-depth understanding of the technicalities behind your SCS exam. And you'd also gain access to a tutor-managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So If you invest on the essential course after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you struggled with a certain theoretical concept, simply refer to the OTQ revision cards to brush up your theoretical knowledge in a jiffy rather than having to waste time by going through bulky study texts, your old study notes and whatnot. Simply refer to the OTQ revision cards. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course, this is intended for those who are coming through the exemption routes and those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these two types of students have the same problem. There are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So with the intention of teaching you all theoretical elements and teaching you how to work on your application skills in a successful manner, we have developed some additional resources and included them under the premium course. So on top of what you'd gain access to under the essential course, you'd also gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all 6 mock exams under exam conditions, which is the only way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will also receive tutor feedback concerning mocks 3 and 5. Let me quickly show you the type of feedback on offer. So as you can see, we have evaluated each point in depth, making sure that you understand your shortcomings, because we believe in a study system in which you are expected to learn through your mistakes. So it's essential that you understand your shortcomings, then you'd know what to do to avoid these shortcomings when conducting revision. If so, you'd avoid the same mistakes at your real examination. So you can see the type of feedback on offer. We have evaluated each and every point, each and every paragraph. And at the very end of this document, we have allocated marks on a subtask by subtask basis. We have also come up with a success rate, which indicates the subtasks in which your performance was substandard. So after you gain this type of feedback, your job is to do something called redevelop answer plans. You will learn how to do it once you attend the 3rd webinar. Okay, so that's the best type of revision you should be involved with. So after receiving tutor feedback focused on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans. So when doing so, you are primarily focusing your attention towards overcoming your issues, thereby conducting revision focused on the subtasks in which your performance was substandard. That's the most important thing to do, because if you do so, you can take steps to overcome your issues and significantly enhance the quality of your answers. So that's the type of feedback on offer via the premium course. And you'd also gain access to the answer plans of all mock exams. No other provider is sharing answer plans with students. So usually you'd gain access to the mock exams and suggested answers, but we have taken a step further. We have developed mind maps concerning each suggested answer so that you can easily understand the logic behind each answer. You can easily understand how to structure each answer, easily understand how to bring in Preseen information, and easily understand how to bring in theoretical knowledge when developing answers. And when conducting your revision, your job is to try and replicate the same logic, thereby taking steps to enhance the quality of your answers. So when you gain access to these answer plans, rather than going through pages and pages of suggested answers, you can easily understand the type of answers you should have developed, the number of points you need to include under each section, how to work on Preseen application, how to work on theory application. All these elements are covered via these answer plans. So you'd gain access to answer plans focused on all 6 mock exams, which makes your life easy when it comes to conducting revision and when it comes to understanding the logic behind each answer. You'd also gain access to 15 master classes. So from mock 2 to 6, we have developed master classes. So in each mock exam, there are 3 sections. So 3 sections into 5 mocks come up to 15 sections in total. So focused on each section, we have developed 15 master classes, and in each master class, our objective is to take you through the logic of each answer and at the same time teach you the theoretical concepts which are covered in each mock exam. Also, highlighting how to work on application. So there's no point of learning theory in isolation and trying to figure out application. Instead, simply watch these masterclasses. Then in one single occasion, you will understand all theoretical concepts which are covered within the 6 mock exams. And at the same time, you will easily gain a good understanding of application skills. So once you gain access to all this content, you will pass for sure. That's why we provide a pass guarantee. And if you invest on the premium course and end up failing, you will gain access to the premium content in your subsequent sitting free of charge. However, in order to claim the pass guarantee, you have to complete these 3 requirements. You have to complete all 6 mock exams. If not, you don't stand a chance to understand how each syllabus area is tested and how each scenario can be tested at your real exam. So it's essential that you attempt all 6 mock exams. And when attempting each mock exam, make sure that you don't go through the suggested answers, answer plans, or master classes. Instead, do it on your own. I want you to be exposed to stressful situations. I want you to give your best shot when attempting mock exams. If you attempt mock exams without referring to the answers, then you stand a chance to understand your shortcomings, because as I mentioned earlier, it's essential that you learn what's going wrong or understand your shortcomings when conducting your preparations, so that you can avoid committing the same mistakes at your real examination. Also, you need to meet the performance criteria focused on the last 3 mock exams. You need to gain 40% or higher. We have come up with this criteria to make sure that you do a serious job when attempting the last 3 mocks, especially given the fact that you are receiving tutor feedback on 2 of these mock exams. So once you have completed these 3 requirements, you will pass for sure. That is why the premium course comes with a pass guarantee. So the premium course is priced at £849, which can be paid in 2 installments of £424 each. Or if you opt to pay in full, you can save £100. If so, the price is just £749. So you can invest on your preferred course by clicking on either of these buttons. And each product is available until the 30th of August 2025. So if you are planning on sitting for SCS exams happening in August, you can invest right now and start preparations so that you have some additional time at your disposal to conduct your preparations in a fruitful manner. And let me quickly take you to the SCS study plan, which can be accessed via the website itself. Let's try to figure out what you are expected to achieve within this week. We are in week number 2. And within this week, we are supposed to dedicate 8 hours of study time. And within this week, you should primarily focus your attention towards decrypting your Preseen document. So with this in mind, watch the 4 Preseen analysis videos, then refer to the annotated Preseen on your own, thereby revising or absorbing information which you have gained via the Preseen analysis videos. Then refer to the industry and financial analysis slides, thereby again conducting revision concerning your industry dynamics and what appears within your financial statement. So within this week, finish off Preseen related analysis. After that, after the second week, you have to kickstart your mock preparations. So, or your mock attempts rather. So week number 3 is going to be the most hectic one, because you are supposed to, dedicate time and effort to attempt 2 mock exams within week 3. That's why you need to dedicate 12 hours of study time. But from week 4 onwards, it's simply a matter of dedicating just 9 hours of study time, because you are simply supposed to attempt 1 mock exam per week and conduct revision focused on the same mock exam. So in order to make sure that you can kickstart your mock attempts in week number 3, you have to complete your Preseen analysis related work within this week. So, start right now. Don't wait until the last moment, because if you start right now, within week 8, which is a week before your exam, when all the other students are scrambling for time, when all the other students are trying to attempt mock exams and do everything under the sun, when they are under so much of stress and pressure, you are supposed to relax. And this will be extremely crucial for you at your real exam, because in a real life corporate environment, if you are not well rested, then you are not capable of being a successful senior finance manager. So I want you guys to succeed. So that's exactly why we want you guys to relax in the last week. And if you are to relax in the last week, you have to kickstart preparations this week itself. Okay, so having said that, let's move on to the industry and pre-scene analysis. So first things first, let's try to understand what your industry is all about, and then let's move towards the annotated pre-scene in which I'm going to, based on which I'm going to conduct an internal analysis, thereby explaining your the internal dynamics of your chosen company. All right, so this time's Preseen is based on a satellite manufacturing and launching company. So this company is based in the satellite manufacturing and launching industry. So let's try to figure out the players within this industry and what they are up to. So players within this industry are into designing, manufacturing, launching, and operating satellites, primarily small satellites. So Leothayre is a satellite manufacturer which is into manufacturing small cube satellites, or simply known as CubeSats. Okay, so these are small satellites. Anyone can send them to space, especially given the fact that these are extremely cheap compared to the large satellites out there. So that's exactly why you can see even hobbyists sending small cube satellites or pocket cubes, which are a smaller version of cube satellites, to the orbit. So these companies are into designing these satellites, manufacturing them in-house, then usually getting in touch with a launch provider, because you need a rocket to send these satellites to the orbit, to the Earth's orbit. So usually satellite manufacturers don't run their own launching capabilities. Instead, they get in touch with a third-party launch provider, thereby making sure that we utilize the rocket to get the satellite to its intended location. And after the satellite is in orbit, we have to operate the satellites using our ground stations as well. You will gain a better understanding of what these things are in a little while when I take you through the internal dynamics of your chosen company. And these small satellites, are positioned mostly in the low Earth orbit, or simply known as the LEO. And these satellites provide communication-related services, help navigation, such as GPS technology, and these can be used to observe the Earth. And also, these satellites enable research capabilities as well. And the main activities carried out by these players within this industry, especially tied to satellite manufacturing, is designing and manufacturing satellites, including standardized bodies like CubeSats or cube satellites. That's exactly what we do as a company as well. Leothayre is a specialist when it comes to manufacturing standardized CubeSats. We manufacture some other set of satellites which are made to order as well. However, our standard product is a standardized cube satellite. And as satellite manufacturers, most players within this industry negotiate with satellite launch providers and facilitate a connection between the customers who want to send a satellite to orbit and launch providers. Because as I mentioned earlier, most satellite providers, they don't have their own launch capabilities. Instead, they need to get in touch with a launch provider. So they deal as the middle entity, or the middlemen between the customer and launch providers, to make sure that we can send the satellite to its intended location. And also, satellite manufacturing companies provide mission control services via their ground stations. So after we send a satellite, we have to keep communicating with it, and we have to keep gathering a lot of data which are gained via the satellite, because in most instances, satellites are sent for communication purposes. So we have to gather a lot of data, and at the same time control these satellites when and if necessary. So we have to run our own ground stations as well. And what type of goals do these companies have? They try to deliver satellites in the most efficient manner, in a reliable manner, because after sending a satellite to orbit, it should function properly. If not, the customers will be dissatisfied. And at the same time, players within this industry are trying to innovate as much as possible so that you can make satellite missions affordable as much as possible. And they support growing and these players support growing global demand for communication, observation, and research. So all these elements tied to communication, observation, and research are enabled by these satellite manufacturing companies. And these companies address sustainability through reducing space debris, because this is an industry which contributes towards carbon emissions. There's a lot of fuel being used when you are launching a rocket, and this leads to soot, and this soot falls back to Earth. And at the same time, after launching a satellite, the rocket has to come back to Earth. And when it does so, it usually breaks up into small fragments which burn in the Earth's atmosphere, again polluting the Earth's atmosphere. And at the same time, when the rocket is brought back to Earth, when it's crashing, it might crash too. If it deorbits, it might crash within populous environments, thereby exposing human beings to accidents, exposing humans towards property damage. So all these type of issues are tied to this industry. And also, once a rocket is coming back to Earth, it disintegrates, and all these small different components, technical components and parts remain within the Earth's atmosphere, which had led to a space debris problem. And the demand for this industry is supposed to grow exponentially in the future, because sending satellites is becoming cheaper and cheaper. And because of that, this space debris problem is going to increase in the future. And some major players within the satellite manufacturing industry are trying to take steps to address this concern, thereby making sure that when the rockets are returning back to Earth after delivering the payload, which are the satellites, they do not disintegrate. They come back to Earth in one single part, so that you are effectively taking steps towards not contributing towards the space debris problem. So that's what your market is all about. And looking at, I'm not going to take you through all this information. I'm simply going to define the industry and explain how the industry is going to change or expected to change in the future. You can at your leisure go through this entire set of slides. Okay, so looking at the industry trends, technological advancements are happening rapidly. And what type of advancements are we talking about? Currently, there's a high use of cube satellites, which is a standardized product which comes in a standardized dimension, with the intention of reducing cost of production and reducing cost of launch, and at the same time making sure that satellites function in the most efficient manner. And companies have the capability of manufacturing these satellites in the most efficient manner. And there are innovations in propulsion systems, rather than relying on fossil fuels. Renewable energy sources are being brought in or developed when manufacturing satellites, as well as the rockets which are used to get these satellites to their intended location. So there are innovations in propulsion systems. Additional sensors or new and innovative sensors are used to keep track of the performance of each satellite and to increase its communication capabilities. And there's innovation tied to power generation as well. Most satellites out there try not to rely on batteries when it comes to storing power. As you know, each satellite usually carries a set of solar panels, so that you can generate some energy by being directed towards the sun. However, you need to have the capability to store this within batteries. So players within this industry are trying to not rely on batteries which are extremely large, which exposes a satellite to extreme levels of heat. And when the satellite heats up, it can explode in the orbit. and when it explodes, it might collide with other satellites or space debris, which will lead to further explosions. So, in order to avoid all these adverse situations, in order to improve functionality of satellites, players within the industry are adopting new and better ways of manufacturing satellites and making sure that these satellites function properly by using innovative sensors and relying on new energy sources. And there's a lot of vertical integration which can be seen within this industry, because it's essential that you ensure the quality of the components you get from your suppliers, and at the same time ensure the quality of the manufacturing process, testing process, and the launch process. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved with this production process. You will gain a better understanding in a little while when I take you through the internal dynamics of Leothayre. So rather than relying on external stakeholders, major players within this industry are trying to pursue vertical integration, thereby running the entire show on their own. So most companies out there, they don't rely on third-party suppliers. Instead, they have acquired or merged with component manufacturing companies, which are essentially the suppliers of this industry. And most companies run their own workshops in which they design and build satellites, and they have these workshops carry testing facilities as well, which are again owned by the companies itself. And at the same time, most companies have to rely on launch providers, but big players have their own launch pads or launch capabilities as well, so that you can make sure that there aren't any hiccups tied to a launch, because you might get the best components out there, you might have the best design, you might have the best manufacturing and testing processes. However, if the launch providers do something in an inefficient manner, then a rocket might explode, or the satellite might not be dropped to the correct location. If so, we are not satisfying customers. So with this in mind, with the intention of improving the quality of the design and manufacturing process, with the intention of improving the quality of quality and functionality of satellites, major players are pursuing vertical integration. And there's a higher focus towards sustainability as well, because as I mentioned earlier, due to this industry, we are exposed to a space debris problem. And within your Preseen, there's a mention about the Wexland government signing something called the Space Junk Charter. That is the last newspaper article which you can see within your Preseen document. So because of that, most players within this industry are trying to rely and commit themselves towards international treaties and laws and regulations tied to reducing the space junk issue or tied to achieving sustainability. So major players are trying to design satellites which are designed to re-enter Earth in a controlled manner rather than disintegrating and falling all over the place. And there are geopolitical considerations which you need to be aware of when thinking about the industry, because governments, mostly governments which govern well-developed countries in this day and age, they are utilizing satellites for military purposes as well as information purposes. As you know, we are in the information age. So it's essential that you gather and transmit data in the most accurate manner on a real-time basis. And also, as I mentioned earlier, most governments in the developed world, they try to utilize satellites for their military purposes as well. So there's a lot of government intervention coming in. Also, governments are forcing companies to develop and operate satellites in the most safe and sustainable manner, thereby addressing the space junk and emission issues tied to this industry. So these are the industry trends which you need to be aware of, which gives you a glimpse into what type of scenarios will be thrown at you at your real exam. Okay, so having said that, let's look at what appears within your Preseen. concerning your chosen company, which is Leothayre. So we were founded in the year 2004, which gives us the indication that we have been in operation for 10 plus years. And we were quoted within the Wexlandian Stock Exchange since the year 2017. So for the past 5 years, we have operated as a quoted company, which is a strength, which can be considered as a strength of our business. And we are into selling satellites and satellite constellations. So you can gain a good understanding of what satellite constellations are when you watch the first Preseen analysis video, which comes with paid content, because in this Preseen analysis video, in the first one, I've explained what satellite constellations are and what it does, what it enables, and whatnot. All these technicalities, I've explained them in depth in the first Preseen analysis video. So we are into selling satellites and satellite constellations. And as a seller of satellites and satellite constellations, we design our own satellites and build these small satellites within our own workshop. And we offer complete satellite services. So our service provision starts from the initial consultation. This is when we get in touch with a customer, and our engineers rather get in touch with the customers and try to understand their exact needs. They try to understand how many satellites we need to send, the size of each satellite, the technical capabilities, the different components, the type of energy we should use within these satellites, and tied to all these things, the cost of each satellite. All these things are discussed in depth in the initial consultation process with the intention of understanding the exact needs of customers. After we have understood what the customers are requesting, then we move on to designing the satellites. And after we finalize the design, we build it. And before deploying the satellite, we conduct rigorous testing via our testing facility. And after it's tested, after we are satisfied with the quality of the satellite, we launch it by getting in touch with third-party launch providers. And after launching it, we help the companies to operate the satellites and gather data and transmit data to these satellites by running our ground stations. So that's what we are up to. So this is an extremely long process if you really think about it. And looking at our main product, it's known as the Leothayre standard. So this is a CubeSat, which comes in 3 different sizes: 3U, 6U, and 12U. These sizes were explained in depth in the first Preseen analysis video, which comes under the paid content. So we are into manufacturing a standardized product, which is known as a cube satellite or a CubeSat, and we develop 3 standardized products in 3 different sizes, which are known as 3U, 6U, and 12U. And each of these satellites carry solar panel arrays so that they can generate energy whilst orbiting, and at the same time they can be adapted to accommodate customers' sensors, because customers have varying needs, and based on their needs we might have to add additional sensors to the standardized product. And this is the easiest and quickest to adapt and build. That is exactly why, looking at the mission timelines tied to our standardized product, which is known as a repeat build, because we are building, when it comes to standardized product, we are building the same thing over and over again with minor changes tied to the type of sensors which need to be added or attached to each type of standardized satellites which we manufacture. So because of that, we have the capability of manufacturing Leothayre standard satellite, a cube satellite, within 4 to 6 months. Okay, and looking at how we conduct our sales and operations, we have already launched 64 Leothayre designed and manufactured satellites, which is a significant strength for us. And at the same time, there's a lot of substantial orders in pipeline, which gives us the fact that gives us an indication that customers believe in us and that customers trust us. There's no indication within this Preseen about any failed mission. So definitely at your examination, there will be a scenario tied to a situation where a mission fails, and because of that, we are exposed to certain adversities. And you, as the senior finance manager, should have the capability of managing these type of adverse situations. So until now, none of our missions had failed because there's no mention of such information within your Preseen. So we can easily assume such a scenario. And we have sold to clients across the world. And our reputation is based on meeting deadlines and achieving mission objectives. So as I mentioned earlier, if you look at our service provision process, we start by conducting an initial consultation with our customers with the intention of understanding their deadlines and understanding the mission objectives. And we try to achieve just that when it comes to manufacturing, designing, building, and testing our satellites. And at the same time, we make sure that these satellites are launched as per the initial deadlines, which we discuss in the initial consultation stage. And our mission timelines tied to repeat builds, such as our standardized product is just 4 to 6 months. However, if we are manufacturing a bespoke or a customized satellite, then it will take us 12 to 18 months because this is a complex process. It's not easy to design and build a satellite which actually functions in zero gravity. So we need to rely on specialized components, specialized capabilities, skill set of our employees. This is a capital intensive manufacturing process. So because of that, it takes a lot of time for us to manufacture a totally new or a bespoke satellite. So most times, in most occasions, customers go for a standardized product, especially given the fact that it can be manufactured within just 4 to 6 months, and it is going to be extremely cheaper compared to a bespoke satellite. All right, so that's that. And let's try to gain an understanding about the production and service process adopted by Leothayre. So as I mentioned earlier, we kickstart the process by conducting a consultation session. And these consultation sessions are carried out by our engineers, and they analyze clients' missions, and based on these missions, they come up with their own recommendations. And these engineers, as I mentioned earlier, determine the type of sensors needed, the size of each satellite, and the cost of launching. And once we finalize all these things, we move towards manufacturing, which happens within our workshop, in which we design, build, and test our satellites. We always make sure to use certified components, space certified components. If not, the satellites will definitely fail in zero gravity. And we ensure that the build, hinged solar panels, and antenna survive launch and deployment. And at the same time, we always test our satellites before launching them. So that's the second stage of our service provision process. And moving on to the third step, this is where we collaborate with launch providers because we don't have our own launch capabilities. Most small satellite, small players within this industry, we are considered as a small player within this industry. So most small players don't have their own launch capabilities. So they have to depend on launch providers. So with the intention of making sure that the customers have the capability of launching the satellites to the intended location, we collaborate with launch providers. So we are the middlemen between customers and launch providers. Leothayre does not launch its own rockets. Instead, it relies on third-party launch providers. And therefore, we have to negotiate launch slots on behalf of customers. And sometimes customers might recommend their own launch provider as well. If so, we need not conduct negotiations between the negotiations with launch providers on behalf of customers. And the fourth step is to manage our ground stations, and Leothayre uses its own ground stations to control the entire mission. And if needed, if some additional or specialized support or knowledge is needed or requested by customers, we offer additional third-party support via our ground stations as well. So we use our ground stations to control the satellites and at the same time to send information to satellites and receive information from satellites. So the probable exam scenarios which can be tested tied to all this information will definitely be with regards to risk exposure, because of the way in which we conduct our business. we are exposed to political, economic, and country risk, as well as foreign exchange risk. Why am I saying this? Because we are dealing with customers who are spread across the world, which exposes us to political, economic, country, and forex risk. And at the same time, we rely on launch providers, again, who are spread across the world, which again exposes us to political, economic, country, and forex risk. And also, if something goes wrong, it might expose us to operational risks. And if if we screw up our operations, then it will impact our reputation in an adverse manner, which in turn will lead to a lower level of shareholder confidence, which will definitely impact our share price in a negative manner. So all these things are tied to reputational risks, and we are relying on a limited number of customers, which is a major risk, because if we lose one of our customers, then it will hit our revenues in an adverse manner. Therefore, our bottom line will be impacted adversely. And this risk, which is tied to us relying on a limited number of customers, appear within your risk report as well. And we are relying on launch providers, and if they do something wrong, or if there's some type of inefficiency created due to the operations of a launch provider, then it impacts us in an adverse manner. Why is this the case? Because we are involved with the process in which we negotiate with launch providers and introduce launch providers to customers. And if the launch provider does something wrong, and because of that, if the mission is adversely impacted, the customers will blame us, because we were the ones who introduced a certain launch provider to the customer. So these type of we are exposed to these type of risks, and we are dependent on our suppliers. There's a high level of resource dependency as well. Again, the quality of our satellites, and at the same time, the success of the functionality of each satellite depends on the components supplied to us. So we rely on well-reputed suppliers, but if there's something wrong, if the supplier exposes us to some type of inefficiency due to them supplying us with inferior components, and if by chance, if our satellites, which are made using inferior components, pass the testing phase, yet when it is in operating in zero gravity, if they fail, then we'd have to be exposed to hordes of issues, thereby impacting, which will adversely impact our revenues and profitability. And also, if something goes wrong, this exposes us to legal risks as well, and we have to comply with the existing laws and regulation governing this industry. And if we move beyond these rules and regulations, then again we are exposed to legal risks. And at the same time, not just understanding each type of risk, you should have the capability of suggesting recommendations to manage each type of risk. So your knowledge pertinent to the TARA framework will definitely be tested at this exam, because the TARA framework should be utilized to categorize risks before we try to manage them. So such knowledge will be tested. And evaluating mergers and acquisitions, especially tied to pursuing vertical integration, will be tested. So rather than relying on third-party suppliers, we can try and acquire or merge with a major supplier with the intention of pursuing vertical integration. Because as I explained earlier, when conducting the industry analysis, I mentioned the fact that it's essential that we link up across the supply network or the supply chain. So with this in mind, most players out there try to pursue some type of vertical integration. And I don't think that you'd see a question where we try to acquire a company which is into launching satellites, because it's going to be extremely expensive. However, some companies pursue this type of vertical integration as well. So you should have the capability of evaluating these type of opportunities at our disposal. So the syllabus areas tested tied to these scenarios are risk identification and management, which appears within your P3 syllabus, how to conduct mergers and acquisitions and vertical integrations and what to consider when doing so, how to deal with various different stakeholders when going ahead with mergers and acquisitions or pursuing vertical integration, which appears within your E3 syllabus, will be tested. And since we are exposed to political, economic, and country risk, your knowledge pertaining to the POTUS diamond, which appears within your E3 syllabus, will be tested. And since these players within this industry contribute towards carbon emissions, contribute towards waste, pollution, and space debris problem, your knowledge pertaining to sustainability and ethics will definitely be tested this time. And you should have the capability of conducting competitor analysis, especially before pursuing mergers or acquisitions. So all this information which appears within your E3 and F3 syllabi tied to competitor analysis can be tested at your exam. All right, so let's look at the mission, vision, and values of your chosen company. So the mission statement gives us an indication of what the company tries to do at the moment, or the reason for being, or tries to address the question, why do we exist? So let's try to understand why Leothayre exists as a company. It exists to lead in creating and operating satellites and meet client needs for space-based facilities. And the vision gives us an indication about the future of the company. So the vision is to provide space-based facilities to enhance quality of life on Earth. And looking at the values or the belief system of your company, we try to excel at all times, because we have to rely on excellence. If not, our missions will fail. And we try to constantly innovate, thereby trying to increase the functionality of each satellite, improve our manufacturing processes, design and testing processes on a constant manner. Why should we do so? Especially given the fact that this industry is changing rapidly. So when the industry is faced with continuous change, we have to fall in line as well. That's exactly why it's good to believe in continuous innovation or constant innovation. And we try to achieve fairness and respect at work. And we try to forge strong client relationships. And we have to, we try to conduct our operations in thereby fulfilling integrity at all times. And in order to fulfill integrity, we try not to overpromise, because if we overpromise and if we can't stick to our promises, then we are not being honest when dealing with our customers. So the overall analysis is the fact that we need to analyze stakeholders based on power and interest, because we are dealing with a lot of stakeholders when operating within this industry. And employee well-being and customer relationships are considered within the value system, which indicates the fact that your knowledge pertaining to GRI standards or integrated reporting, which appears within your F3 syllabus, will be tested. Having said that, looking at the shortcomings, there are three major shortcomings. Number one is tied to safety and reliability. There's no mention about safety and reliability. It's essential that we integrate safety and think about reliability when conducting our operations. So it's essential that we include safety and reliability within our mission, vision, and value statements. And at the same time, there's no indication about the type of collaborations we carry out as per what's highlighted within your risk report. And also, as per what I highlighted a little while back, we rely on third parties, especially the suppliers as well as launch providers. Our success depends on our suppliers and launch providers. So in such an environment, it's essential that we consider these collaborations, or the need for successful collaborations, within our mission, vision, and value statements. So there's no mention of such information. And at the same time, there's no mention of sustainability and emissions, which is a major concern, because as I mentioned earlier, we contribute towards pollution in a larger scale, given the industry dynamics. So in such an environment, it's essential that we take steps towards achieving utmost levels of sustainability and reducing emissions as much as possible. So if we are to really achieve sustainability goals or emission goals, everybody within the organization, all employees, all stakeholders connected with our company should believe in sustainability and should take steps to help us reduce emissions. So since there's no mention about sustainability or emissions within our mission statement, within our vision statement, or in our values, it indicates the fact that our board and the company's senior management is not too concerned about achieving sustainability and emissions. So this is a major shortcoming. This will definitely be tested at your exam, especially given the fact that as per this same Preseen, the government has already signed something called the Space Junk Charter. So you will gain a good understanding about what this Space Junk Charter is by watching the fourth Preseen analysis video, in which I've taken you through all the newspaper articles in depth, thereby highlighting the probable scenarios which can be tested at your exam, and tied to each scenario, I've explained the probable syllabus elements which can be tested. So go watch it to gain a good understanding of what this Space Junk Charter is all about. So in a nutshell, the government has already signed the Space Junk Charter. So because of that, it's essential that we achieve sustainability and reduce emissions. If not, we'd fall behind. If not, customers will stop believing in us, and if that is the case, shareholders won't believe us as well, and in the long run we will fall behind competition, because when competitors are trying to be sustainable, and when they're trying to reduce emissions, if we are not believing in these same dimensions, then we are destined to fail in the future. So the probable exam scenarios tied to all this information is the fact that the examiner will test your ability to evaluate strategic options. So as I mentioned at the very inception of this session, I said that whenever evaluating a strategic option, it's best practice to utilize the SAF framework, the suitability, acceptability, and the feasibility framework, with the intention of conducting holistic evaluation. Why the SAF framework? Because under suitability, we are trying to figure out whether the strategic option which we try to exploit is aligned with our vision, mission, and values. And at the same time, we try to figure out whether the strategic initiative is aligned with our existing business model and the way in which we run our business. And that falls under suitability. Then looking at acceptability, we are looking at how our decisions are going to impact our major stakeholders. It's essential that we satisfy our major stakeholders at all times. And under feasibility, we are looking at resource capability. We are trying to figure out whether we have enough resources to implement the strategic option. If we take the decision to implement the decision, we try to figure out whether we have the necessary financial and non-financial resources to implement it, because we can come up with any decision which satisfies stakeholders, which is aligned with our vision, mission, and values. However, if you don't have the money or the resources to implement it in a successful manner, then there's absolutely no point of trying to go ahead with a certain strategic option or a certain strategic initiative. So in order to carry out a holistic evaluation, you are supposed to utilize the SAF framework whenever you are evaluating a strategic option. And likewise, the examiner will test whether you have the capability of evaluating a strategic option considering the mission, vision, and values of your chosen company. And also, you are expected to recommend internal controls in relation to achieving excellence or efficiency in operations, achieving innovation, achieving safety, managing risks in order to manage risks, and in order to prevent risks from reoccurring in the future. We have to come up with sound controls. So you should have the capability of suggesting controls to prevent risks from occurring. Your knowledge pertinent to the examiner is trying to test whether you have the capability of suggesting controls which will enable us to conduct business in the most ethical manner. Controls tied to sustainability, which will help us, which will ensure that we achieve better levels of sustainability. And controls tied to stakeholder management will be tested, especially given the fact that we are dealing with a plethora of stakeholders, which includes suppliers, launch providers, customers, our own employees, the government, the general public. Because as I mentioned earlier, if a launch fails, a satellite or a rocket might deorbit. If so, when it falls back to Earth, it might fall into a city. If that is the case, it will expose human beings or the occupants of the city towards safety issues. So therefore, we have to consider the needs of the general interests of the general public, and at the same time since we are operating in an industry which is polluting the environment, which had led to, which is the only contributor towards the space debris problem, pressure groups will work against us at all times. So expect to recommend controls and ways to manage each type of stakeholder at your examination. So don't worry, I've covered all these elements within the mock exams, the 6 mock exams which we have developed. All right, so then let's look at the board of directors. I'm not going to take you through all this information, just at your leisure. Once you get your hands on the annotated Preseen, go through the highlighted elements to gain an understanding of what each the skills and capabilities of each director. In an overall sense, the board members are skilled, educated, and experienced. They have appropriate industry knowledge, which is a strength. And at the same time, they have experience within Leothayre as well, because all directors had worked within Leothayre for a certain period of time. And looking at their backgrounds or expertise, they come from electronic, mechanical, and aeronautical engineering backgrounds, which is totally tied with what we do. And our CFO comes from a banking background, and there's a separate director who handles marketing and sales. I'm not too satisfied with the experience of our marketing and sales director. I'm going to talk about it in a little while. And there's a non-executive director who was an ex-politician, which will help us fall in line with legislation and carry out corporate political activity for bridging and lobbying initiatives. And there's another non-executive director who comes from an R&D background tied to economics, environmental studies, and urbanization. So if we are to implement controls with the intention of achieving better sustainability, then we can utilize the skills and capabilities of this non-executive director who comes from an R&D background. And although all these positives are there, there's an imbalance between executive directors and independent non-executive directors. As per corporate governance guidance, which is highlighted within the combined code of corporate governance, which is included within your E3 and P3 syllabi, it's essential that there's a good balance between executive directors and independent non-executive directors. So if there are 5 executive directors, you need to have the same amount of independent non-executive directors. However, that is not the case when you look at Leothayre's situation. We have 5 execs, but just 4 independent non-executive directors, which exposes us to governance risk. And some board members have held academic posts, and this is good for research and development, and this is good for recruitments, because since we have direct contacts with universities, we can easily recruit skilled and capable individuals as and when the need arises. So looking at all this information, the overall analysis is the fact that board responsibilities are properly allocated. However, there are shortcomings as well. There's a lack of focus on commercial strategy beyond traditional marketing, because if you look at our marketing director, Mark has considerable experience of aerospace sales. He had a junior administrative role in the sales department of a major aircraft aircraft manager. So he has held a junior administrative role within the sales department of a major aircraft manager. So this does not imply that this individual is skilled, experienced, and capable of running our marketing operations or providing strategic leadership to our marketing department. So that's a major shortcoming which I can see by looking at the skills and capabilities of the marketing director. And rather than focusing on traditional marketing initiatives, it's essential that we look at the bigger picture, thereby focusing our attention towards commercial strategy, especially given the fact that our supply network is long. We are reliant on a multitude of stakeholders, and we are involved with a complex design and manufacturing process. So in such an environment, we have to think in terms of commercial strategy rather than looking at traditional marketing. And there's a lack of focus on risk management and compliance. Although we have a risk committee, within the board, none of the committee members come from risk management backgrounds. So there's no indication of how these independent non-executive directors who are part and parcel of the risk committee are well versed, whether they are well versed with risk management, risk identification, and risk management capabilities. So there's a shortcoming in this area, and there's a lack of focus on sustainability. Although one of the independent non-executive directors come from an R&D background tied to environmental studies, there's no one who comes from a sustainability background, because achieving sustainability within this industry is not too easy. Just because you know what sustainability is, if you don't have the capability of understanding how we can achieve the required level of sustainability within this industry, then you can't really achieve sustainability. So that's exactly why there's no mention of mission sustainability within our mission, vision, and values. So there's an issue. And looking at our operations director, I think that the operations director is overburdened, especially given the fact that this individual has to carry out provide leadership to three major elements of our business process. This individual has to liaise with launch partners, which is an essential part of the way in which we provide services to customers. And at the same time, the same individual has to ensure we achieve health and safety, and we manage our human resources in the most appropriate manner. So there's too much on the plate when you consider the responsibilities of the operations director. So it's ideal for us to have a separate individual, could be an executive director, could be an independent non-executive director, handling health and safety and HRM, because health and safety and HRM go hand in hand. And if we appoint a separate leader to look into these elements, then the operations director can effectively liaise with launch partners, because our success depends on the success of launching. If not, we'd be exposed to a plethora of risks. So it's essential that we let the operations director tackle relationships with launch partners and appoint someone else to handle HR, health, and safety related issues. So the solutions to the shortcomings are to appoint an executive director or a non-executive director who is well versed with risk management expertise, commercial strategy, HRS expertise, and to appoint a separate board committee, which is known as a sustainability committee. So we need not appoint a separate director and develop a separate department which is focused on sustainability. Instead, we can simply appoint a separate sustainability committee. So tied to all this information, the probable exam scenarios which can be tested are with regards to board composition versus corporate governance. You need to have a good understanding of the composition of our board and whether we are falling in line with corporate governance guidance as per what appears within the combined code of corporate governance. And you should have an understanding of board responsibilities when it comes to restructuring the board. There could be a scenario where we are contemplating, the board is contemplating about restructuring the board because there are certain shortcomings within the board. So you should know how to tackle such a scenario, how to tackle these type of restructures, how to think in terms of falling in line with corporate governance best practices. There could be a scenario tied to us appointing a board committee, especially tied to the sustainability committee, appointing an executive director or a non-executive director tied to risk management, commercial strategy, or HR. There could be a scenario where we try to dismiss a director as well due to a certain issue. Then there's a certain way in which you need to handle it. How to stipulate directors' remuneration, because as you know, the directors themselves are not supposed to stipulate their own salaries and benefits. It should be handled via the remuneration committee. I'm going to talk about these things in a little while. And ethics tied to lobbying, how to conduct lobbying initiatives in the most ethical manner, and ethics tied to disclosure requirements will be tested at the exam. And again, I've made sure to cover all these elements within the 6 mock exams which we have developed. And looking at board responsibilities, the board is headed by the CEO, and under the CEO, there are 4 different directors. I'm not going to take you through this information because I've explained all these things in the Preseen analysis video, which comes with the paid content. I'm simply going to direct your attention towards the board committees. There are 4 board committees. There's an audit committee, which looks into the internal control environment of our organization, thereby falling in line with corporate governance best practices. There's a risk committee which looks into risks concerning our company. There's a remuneration committee which looks into directors' bonuses, their salaries, their compensation, and whatnot. And there's a nomination committee which handles board nominations. Whenever we get rid of a director or whenever a director resigns, the nomination committee should come up with nominations so that the shareholders can appoint their preferred director to the board. So what you need to remember is the nomination committee is not involved with appointing directors. Appointing directors, the responsibility lies with shareholders. However, before you appoint directors, you need to come up with a set of nominees, and this nomination process should be handled by the nomination committee as per corporate governance guidance. So we are falling in line with corporate governance best practices by having 4 different committees looking into audit, risk, remuneration, and nomination. And although this is the case, we can see that the non-executive chair is part and parcel of the audit committee. As per corporate governance guidance, this should not be the case. The non-executive chair should not be part and parcel of the audit committee. Instead, all members of the audit committee should be independent non-executive directors. And looking at the other committees, these committees are comprised of mostly independent non-executive directors, thereby again falling in line with corporate governance guidance. Because as you know, when it comes to board committee compositions, it's essential that 50% or higher members out of the members, 50% or higher individuals should be independent non-executive directors. So we are complying with this, and that's why I've said that the independent directors dominate all committees, and the chief internal auditor reports to the audit committee, again complying with corporate governance best practices. So tied to this information, the syllabus areas tested are with regards to the combined code of corporate governance, which is practiced in the UK, and this is highlighted within your E3 as well as P3 syllabi. Okay, so there's an indication about the principal risks of your chosen company. The company has already identified 6 different risks, and along with it, there's an indication about the type of mitigatory strategies adopted by the company. So as a senior finance manager, you should have the capability of understanding whether we have actually identified all risks when operating within this industry. That's the first step. So you should have the capability to understand whether we have actually identified all risks, or whether there are shortcomings, or whether there are certain risks which are not included within this risk report. And at the same time, you need to have a good understanding of whether we have adopted successful mitigatory strategies which will help us overcome each type of risk or manage each type of risk in the most effective manner. So due to this fact, with the intention of making sure that you gain a good understanding of what's highlighted within the risk report, I've evaluated each risk in depth. So I'm not going to take you through all risks. Instead, I'm simply going to direct your attention towards risk number 5, which is tied to client dependency. So as I mentioned earlier, we are dependent on a limited number of clients. So if we lose one of our customers, then it will impact our revenues in the most adverse manner. So with the intention of managing this risk, we try to understand the exact client needs, because if we understand the client needs and if we take steps to fulfill them, then we won't end up losing any customers. So we try to monitor client needs as per the current mitigation strategies adopted by your company. And at the same time, we ensure that progress and potential contract overruns are addressed promptly. If there are cost overruns or if there are overruns tied to time management, then we try to address them as and when needed, as and when we identify them. So with the intention of satisfying our existing employees, existing customers rather, we try to monitor client needs at all times with the intention of understanding the exact requirement of each customer. And after doing so, if we feel that when carrying out each phase, each manufacturing phase, each testing phase, if we feel that we are exposed to some type of cost or time overruns, we try to address them promptly. So my assessment is the fact that the current mitigatory strategies adopted by the company are reactive. So we are waiting until something goes wrong. That's exactly why it's mentioned that we try to address cost and time overruns promptly as and when it occurs. A successful company, if it wants to manage its risks in the most successful manner, rather than being reactive, we have to take preventive action. If we take preventive action, then we'd manage risks in the long run without any hiccups. So currently we are reactive. It's essential that we become proactive when it comes to managing this risk. So with this in mind, I've suggested certain enhancements which we can implement with the intention of insulating us against this client dependency risk. So first things first, we have to take steps to broaden the client base. So there's no mention about us trying to pursue some type of diversification or us trying to exploit additional revenue generation streams. Instead, we are trying to simply listen to the customers at the moment and take steps if there are any overruns as and when needed. So rather than doing this, it's essential that we broaden the client base, which will effectively insulate us against client dependency risk. Because if we increase our client base, then even if we lose one single customer, our revenues will not be heavily impacted. So with the intention of broadening our client base, it's prudent for us to pursue some type of related diversification, such as a SaaS model or a satellite as a service model. I'm going to, explain what a satellite as a service model is in a little while, whilst taking you through one of the news articles which appear within your Preseen, which gives us a direct hint about a scenario which will be tested at your exam. So we can pursue a satellite as a service model, which is an additional revenue generating stream, and at the same time, which can be considered as a related diversification. And at the same time, we can collaborate with the government with the intention of, again, broadening our client base. Because as I mentioned earlier, most governments in developed countries are extremely keen on investments made on satellite technology, because they try to fulfill their information needs as well as military needs. So with the intention of overcoming dependency on a small number of clients, if we get in touch with the government and if we try and get government projects on board, then it will expose us to significant sales in the future. If so, even if we lose one of our customers, we need not really be concerned about it. But currently, that is not the case. So we have to pursue some type of related diversification. And at the same time, we have to collaborate with the government with the intention of increasing our client base. So I was talking about satellite as a service model. So let me quickly explain what this is by taking you through the relevant newspaper article. So this is an article which is taken from the Wexland Daily. So this article includes information about clients investing on satellite-based weather data. So certain clients, so certain customers or certain companies or individuals out there are interested in investing on satellite-based weather data. Why is this the case? These players cannot rely on weather forecasts of the Wexland Met Office, usually when the government Met Office handles something, they rely on outdated technologies, which therefore gives us outdated information. However, if you are a large farming company, if you are a major construction firm, if you are running your own oil rig or a set of oil rigs, it's essential that you gain access to up-to-date and accurate weather data. Because when it comes to farming, if you don't know how the weather is going to be in the future, if you don't know what the weather is actually going to be today, then you can't take steps to effectively make sure that you take steps to insulate against bad weather. The same could be said about builders. Before conducting construction operations, they have to be conversant with weather patterns, and oil rigs always try to avoid adverse weather conditions before they conduct their oiling operations. So that is exactly why these type of players cannot rely on the weather forecasts which are presented by the Wexland Met Office. So because of that, these companies rely on satellite-based data, because satellite-based data is accurate, and at the same time, this type of information is shared on a real-time basis. So when you are dealing with real-time information, it significantly improves or increases the accuracy of your forecasts. So tied to this information, the probable exam scenarios which can be tested are tied to us exploiting a revenue diversification. So I was talking about a satellite as a service model, or a SaaS model. So this is a model in which we can sell the data which we gather from our satellites to third parties. So at the moment, we are simply into designing, manufacturing, testing, and launching satellites to the Earth's atmosphere. However, we can pursue this related diversification because we are already conversant with manufacturing satellites. So rather than working on behalf of our customers, we can send our own set of satellites or satellite constellations with the prime intention of gathering weather-related data. And this weather-related data can be sold to third-party customers such as large farming companies, builders, and oil rigs. So rather than relying on our traditional business model, I'm suggesting the fact that since it's mentioned within the Preseen itself, since the examiner is actually giving us a hint about what can be tested at the exam, what type of scenarios can be tested at the exam, it's essential that you think in terms of pursuing related diversification, which is tied to a SaaS model or a satellite as a service model. And if we are to go down this lane, then we have to invest on data analytics related technology. So tied to these type of investments, your knowledge pertaining to funding options, how to manage your debt and equity financing will be tested at the exam. And also, it's essential that we forge partnerships with weather forecasting firms, because when we kickstart our operations, our SaaS operations, we might not have the forecasting capabilities. We will definitely have the capabilities to gather data via our ground stations. However, we won't have capability to evaluate them, analyze them in the most accurate manner. So that's exactly why it's essential that we partner up with weather forecasting firms. And if data is shared with oil companies, for instance, it might attract criticism from pressure groups, because these oil companies, again, are polluting the environment. They are directly impacting carbon emissions in an adverse manner. So, considering all these things, if as a company, we are polluting the environment at the moment, so on top of it, if we help another polluter, then it will expose us to adverse reactions from pressure groups as well as the general public. And also, if we go down this lane, or if we go down this route, we will be gathering a lot of data. And when gathering data, not just gathering data, we will be sharing data with third parties as well. So when gathering and transmitting data, we have to ensure the security of our data. And at the same time, if we are gathering customer-specific confidential information, then it exposes us to privacy issues as well. So if we pursue this SaaS model, we have to ensure the security of our data, and we safeguard the privacy of our customers when dealing with their confidential data sets. So the syllabus areas tested to this information is scenario planning. So before pursuing this type of diversification, it's essential we consider multiple scenarios. Therefore, conducting a holistic evaluation before jumping the gun. Conducting a scenario planning will ensure that we look at various different alternatives, thereby taking a well-informed decision. So, and on top of that, your knowledge pertaining to the SAF framework when pursuing this strategic option, how to evaluate it using the SAF framework will be tested. We are supposed to deal with a multitude of stakeholders in addition to the current stakeholders we are dealing with, because if you are trying to get in touch with an additional set of customers, then it increases the type of stakeholders with whom we are dealing at the moment. And at the same time, we will have to get in touch with finance providers. We will have to forge partnerships with weather forecasting firms, and we will have to get in touch with companies or individuals who are knowledgeable in securing our data and ensuring data privacy. So in these terms, we will be dealing with hordes of additional stakeholders. So then you should have the capability of managing each type of stakeholder group. Therefore, your knowledge pertaining to the Mendelow's matrix will be tested. As I mentioned earlier, if you are going for additional investments in the future, your knowledge pertaining to funding options will be tested. And if we go down this road, then our business ecosystem changes, because our existing business model has nothing to do with a SaaS model. But if we pursue this related diversification, you need to understand how it impacts our business ecosystem and how to manage these changes. And when doing something new, we will be exposed to change management issues, especially tied to resistance to change. So you should have the capability of coming up with recommendations to manage resistance to change. And you should have the capability of evaluating risks versus the share price of the company, and risks versus stakeholder reactions. And also you should have the capability to identify and mitigate risks tied to operational issues when trying to pursue a SaaS model. We are trying to do something new, although it's some type of related diversification. We are doing something new which might expose us to operational issues. We might be exposed to technological risks. And if we are exposed to operational and technological risks, our reputation will be adversely impacted. And we are exposed to data security and privacy risks, especially if we partner up with weather forecasting firms, especially if we utilize the skills and capabilities of data analysts. We are exposed to these type of risks, and all these risks will in turn expose us to legal risks. So you should have the capability to manage each type of risk, come up with practical recommendations. And it's a best practice to utilize the TARA framework before you try and manage each type of risk, because as per the TARA framework, you are supposed to consider the impact of each risk and consider the probability of recurrence of each risk, or probability of each risk materializing, thereby categorizing each risk into different quadrants. And after categorizing, you are supposed to take appropriate mitigatory action. So your knowledge pertaining to the TARA framework will be tested. And you should also know how to update the risk register, especially given the fact that there are shortcomings within our risk report. In a little while, I'm going to explain one of the shortcomings, because we are running out of time. So you should have the capability of updating the risk register. There's a certain methodology which you need to adhere to when doing so. And also, you should have the capability to suggest internal controls to prevent some type of risk from occurring, and at the same time to ensure that we go ahead with this SaaS model in the most efficient manner. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight the connection between what's highlighted within the newspaper articles and what's highlighted within your risk report. So this is exactly why I said that it is essential that you attempt Preseen specific mock exams, because the risk report which appeared on a previous Preseen will be totally different to yours. And the newspaper articles which appeared in a previous Preseen will be totally different to yours. As I explained right now, there's a direct connection between the risk report and the newspaper article, which gives us a clear indication of what type of a scenario can be thrown at your exam, and tied to it what type of syllabus areas will be tested, what type of skills and capabilities of a senior finance manager will be tested. So it's essential that you attempt mock exams which are exam standard, which are intended to cover all syllabus areas, which are intended to cover all scenarios, which are tied to what appears within the newspaper articles and tied to what appears within your Preseen. Therefore, it is essential that you attempt mocks which are 100% Preseen specific. So let's look at notable gaps within your principal risk report. I'm going to talk about cybersecurity risks, because we were contemplating about a SaaS model. So tied to a SaaS model, I said that we'd be exposed to data security and privacy issues. So if there's a scenario concerning us pursuing related diversification, thereby going for a SaaS model, definitely, since there's no mention about cybersecurity risks within your risk report, definitely you would be expected to come up with mitigatory action and controls with the intention of preventing cybersecurity risks. So this is a notable gap within our risk report. And again, I've suggested ways in which you can manage this risk. So since we are operating our own ground stations, we collect and transmit data. When doing so, it's essential that we safeguard the security and privacy of data. Also, if we exploit the SaaS model, we will be selling data, thereby relying on an additional revenue stream. When doing so, again, we have to make sure that we share data in the most secure manner. So there's no indication about this risk, which highlights the fact that we are clueless about it. Definitely, this risk is going to be tested at your exam, because if there are any gaps highlighted within the Preseen, based on these gaps, scenarios and syllabus elements will be thrown at you at your real exam. So how can we fix this issue? If there's since there's a shortcoming in this area, how can we effectively prevent these risks from occurring in the future? We have to come up with simply a cybersecurity framework. And within this framework, we should highlight how to conduct regular penetration tests, because we have to conduct penetration tests and see whether external parties can penetrate into our data systems, not just when we are gathering data, also when we are transmitting data. And also we should secure data transmission protocols, because when we are transmitting data, someone can hack into our systems and steal information from us. And we have to come up with robust access controls and encryption systems with the intention of preventing unauthorized access, not just concerning third parties, preventing unauthorized access concerning our own employees. And also we have to come up with an incident response plan to mitigate these potential attacks, which is the best way to make sure that everyone within our organization know how to function, how to operate when faced with a cybersecurity risk. Because if our employees are clueless about a cybersecurity risk, and for instance, if you are exposed to a data vulnerability or a data breach for the first time, definitely everyone within the organization will panic, because no one will know how to tackle such a situation. So rather than being confused when faced with an issue, it's essential that we develop effective response plans so that everyone within the organization operates in a standardized process. Rather than panicking, we operate in a standardized process, thereby taking effective measures to control risk exposure. All right, so that's one of the shortcomings highlighted here. So likewise, there are three major shortcomings which I've identified, and I've included them within your annotated Preseen. All right. So having said that, it brings us to the end of the industry and pre-scene analysis session, which I wanted to conduct. And if you stick to our study plan, you can pass for sure. That is exactly why we achieved a 90% pass rate in the November 2024 SCS sitting. And you can achieve a similar feat simply by utilizing our resources and sticking to our study plan. All right. So having said that, it brings us to the Q&A. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks. So thank you very much for those questions. I hope I addressed everything. And if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Go to our website and click on the contact button, and you'd be directed to the contact area. Drop your message so that our admin staff can get in touch with you via email during office hours. You can email us at info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us on this number. And I invite you to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded version of this webinar will be uploaded. All the webinars rather will be uploaded to our YouTube handle. Also via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 different videos, which is a good pre-scene mind map, which covers the entire pre-scene. So on your way to office, for instance, on a daily basis, keep watching these 6 TikToks over and over until the day of your exam, so that you constantly keep reminding yourself about what appears within your pre-scene document. Also, I urge you to read the blog post which we have developed concerning your chosen company. So which can be accessed via the website itself. So go to the blog area, and I've developed a newspaper, a blog post concerning Leothayre. Click on this to read it. I hope you would have already read it, because I shared it with you guys today in the morning. So having said that, it brings us to the end of the second webinar, in which I conducted an industry and pre-scene analysis. I hope you gained a good understanding of what you are expected to achieve when conducting your preparations in the upcoming weeks. And I invite you to attend the third webinar without fail, which is the most important webinar out of the webinar series, in which I'm going to teach you answering and time management techniques. Not just teach these techniques, I'm going to explain how to implement them in the most accurate manner, or in the most successful manner, thereby taking you through the answer plans concerning the mock, which I'm going to discuss. So I hope you attend the third webinar and the remaining webinars and workshops as well. And I hope you'd start your preparations right now, so that you'd have ample time to conduct your preparations. So thank you very much for joining. I'll see you guys next week. Till then, good night and take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.